It's 1964. America is changing fast. The Civil Rights Act is weeks away from being signed. The Vietnam War is quietly escalating. The nation is sitting inside a pressure cooker of guilt, paranoia, and pride. And on a Tuesday night, a 25-minute television episode airs on CBS that tears open every single one of those wounds at once. It plays once, then it disappears. No reruns. No home video release. No DVD box set. No streaming. For over half a century, it simply does not exist, at least not in any official capacity. Hardcore fans trade grainy bootleg VHS tapes. Scholars reference it cautiously. Most viewers never even know it happened. That episode is called The Encounter. And it is, without question, the most controversial, most suppressed, and most misunderstood piece of television ever produced under the Twilight Zone name. Today, we're going to do something that TV executives spent 55 years trying to avoid. We're going to talk about it, all of it. What the episode actually contains, why it was buried, who got hurt, who got vindicated, and why the story it tells is not a relic of the past, but a mirror held up to the present. This is the story of a banned episode, the man who made it, the man who starred in it, and the country that couldn't handle what it showed them. Welcome back. Let's step into the zone. Before we can understand why the encounter was buried, we need to understand the man who built the world it lived in. Rod Serling was not a comfortable man to be around. Not because he was difficult, but because he was honest. He was a World War II combat veteran who had parachuted into the Pacific Theater and witnessed violence that permanently altered him. He came home carrying things most men of his generation were told to leave at the door: grief, moral confusion, and a burning need to make sense of what he had seen. He turned that need into writing. By the mid-1950s, Serling was one of the most respected television writers in America. He was working in live drama, a form that demanded precision, economy, and emotional weight. And he was trying to use that platform to say something real. In 1956, he wrote a live TV drama called Noon on Doomsday, inspired by the murder of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy beaten to death in Mississippi for allegedly whistling at a white woman. His killers were acquitted in 52 minutes by an all-white jury. Serling wanted to dramatize that horror. The network let him try. Then the sponsors got involved. Then the affiliate stations in the South got involved. And one by one, every truth in the script was sanded down, swapped out, or erased. The black victim became a nameless foreigner. Mississippi became nowhere. The racial context, the entire point, was stripped away until nothing remained but an empty shell of a story that said nothing and meant nothing. Serling was furious. He later described the experience as professional humiliation. But more than that, it taught him something about power and storytelling that would define the rest of his career. If you say the thing directly, they will stop you. So don't say it directly. The Twilight Zone premiered on CBS in October 1959, and from the beginning, it operated on this principle. Every alien invasion was a metaphor. Every monster was a projection. Every parallel universe was a version of this one, just with the mask taken off. Serling could write about racism, fascism, nuclear fear, and political conformity, as long as the story was technically set in outer space or 100 years in the future. The network tolerated it. The sponsors tolerated it. And millions of viewers, many of whom didn't fully realize what they were watching, absorbed it. That was the genius. That was the plan. But the plan had limits. And in the fifth and final season of The Twilight Zone, one episode pushed past every limit at once. The Encounter aired on May 1st, 1964. Written by Martin M. Goldsmith and directed by Robert Butler, the episode stars Neville Brand and a young actor named George Takei. Years before he would become Lieutenant Hikaru Sulu aboard the USS Enterprise. The setup is deliberately minimal. A World War II veteran named Fenton is cleaning out his attic. A young Japanese-American man named Arthur Takamori knocks on his door looking for yard work. Fenton invites him up. They start talking. That's it. That's the whole episode. 2 men. 1 room. 25 minutes. What unfolds in that room is one of the most psychologically complex, morally unresolved, and emotionally brutal pieces of television the 1960s ever produced. Fenton is not a villain, at least not in any clear-cut way. He's damaged, haunted. He served in the Pacific Theater, and he fought hard. But something in the way he talks about it tells you the war didn't leave cleanly. He's got a samurai sword hanging on the wall, taken, we come to understand, from a Japanese soldier he killed. Maybe a soldier who was already surrendering. He doesn't say that out loud. He doesn't have to. Arthur, meanwhile, arrives pleasant and deferential. He's trying to earn some money. He's polite. But as the conversation deepens, something shifts. He becomes fixed on the sword. He starts saying strange things. And then he says the thing that detonates the episode. His father was a spy for Imperial Japan. His father helped plan the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now here is where the episode gets genuinely dangerous and genuinely brilliant. Because Sorling doesn't tell you whether to believe Arthur. He never resolves it. Arthur could be telling the literal truth. He could be repeating something he was once told and half believed as a child. He could be performing a kind of confrontational theater, deliberately weaponizing the worst thing anyone could say about a Japanese American in 1964 in order to force Fenton to reckon with the other side of the ledger. The 120,000 Japanese Americans who were imprisoned in internment camps after Pearl Harbor, without charge, without trial, without evidence. Think about that for a second. 120,000 people. American citizens, farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, children, stripped of their homes, their livelihoods, their freedom, not because of anything they did, but because of what they looked like, because fear needed a face, and their face was convenient. Arthur grew up in that world. Whether his father was guilty of anything is almost beside the point. He grew up as the child of a group that was collectively punished for the sins of another nation. And he's been carrying that ever since. The episode doesn't resolve. It doesn't offer comfort. It ends in violence, not redemptive, not cathartic, just awful and inevitable, the way violence between people shaped by trauma often is. CBS received complaints immediately. The episode was called offensive, dangerous, anti-American. Some Asian American advocacy groups condemned the portrayal of Arthur's father as a traitor, arguing, not unreasonably, that it reinforced the exact stereotype that had been used to justify internment. Others found Fenton's characterization too unsympathetic, too damning of veterans. Internally, CBS was already anxious about the show's declining ratings and rising costs. Rather than stand behind the episode, they made a quiet decision. The encounter would not go into syndication. It would not be licensed for home video. It would be shelved. And for 55 years, it was. Here is the part of this story that makes everything else land differently. George Takei was not playing a fictional character in the encounter. He was, in a very real sense, playing himself. Takei was born in Los Angeles in 1937. He was 4 years old when the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor happened. He was 5 when U.S. Army soldiers arrived at his family's home, ordered his parents to pack what they could carry, and transported them to an internment camp. His family was sent first to the Rower War Relocation Center in Arkansas, later to the TWILIGHT camp in California. He remembers it. He has spoken about it throughout his public life with a clarity and precision that makes the history impossible to dismiss as abstract. He remembers the guard towers. He remembers the barbed wire. He remembers watching his father, a man who loved America, who had built a life in America, submit to a process of dehumanization that had no legal or moral justification. Takei was a child in a prison built by the country he was born in. When he was given the role of Arthur in the encounter, he was a young actor trying to build a career in a Hollywood that offered almost no roles to Asian American men that weren't demeaning stereotypes. The episode was, in the context of 1964 television, a significant departure. A complex, morally ambiguous Asian American character in a serious dramatic role. That alone was rare, but the complexity of Arthur's character, especially the revelation about his father, placed Takei in a difficult position. He was being asked to embody the very accusation that had been used to destroy Japanese American communities, the spy narrative. the loyalty question, the suggestion that Japanese Americans could not be trusted. He did it anyway, because the episode wasn't endorsing that narrative. It was interrogating it. It was asking, what does it do to a person to grow up under the shadow of collective suspicion? What does inherited shame feel like from the inside? What happens when two men who have both been damaged by the same war sit in a room together and try, and fail, to find common ground? Takei understood what the episode was doing even if its critics didn't. And when it was pulled from circulation, he lost something too. A piece of work that reflected his actual lived experience, a piece of work that could have contributed to public understanding of what internment did to real people, was quietly erased. The encounter was the most high-profile casualty, but it wasn't alone. When The Twilight Zone entered syndication in the 1960s and 70s, 5 episodes were left out of the standard package that stations could license. Each one was removed for a different reason, but together they tell a consistent story about what the television industry considered too risky to keep. Miniature, starring a young Robert Duvall, was pulled over a copyright dispute. The original rights agreement only covered a single broadcast. When the estate of the source material's author wouldn't renegotiate terms, the episode simply vanished from reruns for decades. It eventually returned in a DVD release in the early 2000s, not because anyone fought for it, but because the legal clock finally ran out. A short drink from a certain fountain told the story of a man who takes a youth serum and regresses into childhood, trapping his younger wife in a reversed caretaker role. It was pulled after claims that the plot resembled an unproduced script by another writer. CBS, facing the possibility of a plagiarism lawsuit, simply stopped airing it. Whether the similarities were real or imagined didn't matter. The threat was enough. Sounds and Silences featured a man tormented by extreme sensitivity to noise, a condition that mirrors real neurological disorders. After it aired, a former Navy officer sued CBS, claiming the episode was based on his life without his consent. The lawsuit may have had little legal merit, but the network's response was immediate and absolute. Pull it quietly, and don't draw attention to the decision. An occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge was an entirely different case. It wasn't even an original Twilight Zone production. It was a French short film, adapted from an Ambrose Bierce story, that CBS purchased the rights to air as an episode. The licensing deal only permitted a single broadcast. After that one airing, the episode, which went on to win an Academy Award for Best Short Film, was locked away simply because no one had thought to negotiate for more. What connects all of these? Not outrage, not scandal, not even genuine controversy in most cases. What connects them is risk management, the calculation that it was easier, cheaper, and safer to make something disappear than to defend it. And that calculation didn't end with The Twilight Zone. It didn't end with the 1960s. It's the same calculation being made by streaming platforms